following is a presentation of the Reviewing Network Sports.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the NFL Network. I don't know what I was trying to do with that. Just trying to shake things up for the opening here. But as you can tell, certainly the complete opposite of how I felt about last week's games in general. Here, I feel like the Joker in Tim Burton's Batman. As you can tell, I'm a lot happier because, yeah, this was definitely a much better week of football than the horrors of Week 10. That was pretty much a bad week overall, but this week certainly was a whole lot better, at least in terms of the regular games. Primetime games, once again, we have a lot of questions for the 6 teams involved in this one here. Okay, maybe not all 6 teams, maybe 3 of those 6, half of those 6 teams. New England, Dallas, Philadelphia. You don't need to hear anything from me, but Detroit, New York, Raiders. Yeah, we need to talk. We need to talk about you, especially the Lions. Good Lord. And you'll see why we need to talk about them as we take a look at my power rankings for Week 12. You see the Lions all the way down at the bottom of the list, and you're probably thinking to yourself, weren't they just up at the top of 4? Why are they down there at the bottom? Well, just like how the Buffalo Bills were unprepared for the Miami Dolphins a week ago and why they were at the bottom of the list, the Lions seemed like they were completely unprepared for the Philadelphia Eagles, and most of that really you can put the blame on Dan Campbell, consistently going for it on 4th down multiple times. You know, at a certain point in a game, when you're down 13-6, just take the points. I mean, I don't understand why Dan Campbell felt like he had to keep going for it on 4th down multiple times when it wasn't working. If it was working, I would say that's not a problem. And it's the fact that you just got beat by a good Philadelphia Eagles team. But the Philadelphia Eagles offense struggled big time again this week overall. But at the same time, it's just kind of like the Lions are helping them because they kept going for it on 4th down. Fake punts weren't working. And after this, I counted, it was like 5 or 6 times they went for it on 4th down. After the 3rd or 4th time, it's just kind of like, just take the damn points. Stay in this game. And then when they tried to score at the end, it was already too little, too late. Even with that bad defensive pass interference call, there was no way the Lions were going to come back from that. I mean, it's baffling to me that a team as good as the Detroit Lions, just like the Bills were the week ago when they got their ass handed to them by the lowly Dolphins, it's amazing how a game like this just makes you think of more question marks for this team in general here. Like, who would have thought the Chicago Bears would be leading the NFC North right now? After what is with the Lions and the Packers, and I'll even throw in the Vikings in general, but Bears right now are leading right now. They're in pretty good position, and hopefully I will not hear any more BS from people. It's mostly the people on Threads that keep getting on me for my rankings here, and it's mostly, and every time I put the Chicago Bears up there, it's like, well, Chicago's up there. Why is Chicago so high up there? And as you can tell, the Chicago Bears are high up there, and I will talk about why in just a little bit here. But for the Detroit Lions, it's inexcusable that you kept going for it on 4th down, and and at some point nobody said to Dan Campbell, hey, Dan, I know you're a gambler, but for God's sakes, we've got to stop doing this because we're giving the Eagles every opportunity to blow this game open. And they didn't really blow it open, but they still won regardless of their lackluster offense. The offense for the Eagles still looks terrible, but the Lions overall just look bad on Sunday night in general here. Are you really missing Sam Laporta that much? Because they just put him on injured reserve the day before, and it's just kind of like, there's no excuse for how bad the Lions were this week. But hey, they'll get a chance to do what the Buffalo Bills did this past week and rebound. But we'll touch on that as we go along into the predictions here. But let's take a look at my top 5 in general here. And I'll start off at number 5, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Jaguars, I have them at 5 because of what they did against the Los Angeles Chargers. And they did this without Travis Hunter, who is out for the rest of the season, of course. and they they pretty much took down the Los Angeles Chargers and it wasn't even close. 35-6 was the final score. And yeah, that good luck the Chargers had even with all their injuries came to a crashing end this week. And all I can ask is why the fuck couldn't the Steelers do this the week before? But no, it had to be Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars to do it. But hey, good luck. Hey, good on the Jacksonville Jaguars. They found ways to do it. The running game was really the big difference maker in this one here. Bijan Tootin and also Trevor Etienne were the two main reasons I think they won that game in general. And they're really showing that they're still hanging around in there. I mean, the Colts are high up there right now in the AFC South, but the Jaguars are not going away anytime soon. And they're going to meet the Colts in Jacksonville, I think at the beginning of December. And we all know how bad the Colts are in Jacksonville. They haven't won there in 11. I think it's like 11 years now. They haven't won there, and if they're not careful, the Jaguars could go in there and make it 12 years straight at this point. So it was either 10 or 11 years. I think the last win they had was 2014. So it would technically be this would be their 11th year to do that. So moving on to number 4, how can I not put the Denver Broncos in there after what they did to Kansas City? And they proved to everybody that they are for real right now. I mean, my biggest thing going into this game was there's no way that the Denver Broncos could go in there and allow Kansas City to play there's no way that Denver was going to win this game by just scoring 10 points, just like they had done against Las Vegas the week before. And luckily, they did not do that. They came ready to play against Kansas City, and they proved to everybody that they are a force to be reckoned with overall. I mean, they did everything they could. They didn't let Kansas City be the last one to touch the ball. They exonerated the demons of the year before, where they had a chance to win the game, and they blocked the field goal. And this time, it came down to a game-winning field goal, and just like poetic justice there. It proves that the Denver Broncos are for real now. But the question now becomes, can you stick with it? Because as we've seen with Buffalo and we've seen with Jacksonville in the weeks later, they have not won those games. So Denver this week, luckily they won't have to worry about that because they're on a bye week along with their next opponent, the Washington Commanders, which as you can see they're down at the bottom there, but I digress. We'll see what happens when they meet up again, which apparently that Sunday Night Football game is gonna still happen. Which why? I mean, Jaden Daniels isn't coming back at that point. Isn't coming back anytime soon. And even at they're 3-8 right now. The Commanders are. Like, are we really gonna have to sit through another blowout game just like the Seattle game? Apparently, that's the case that we're gonna deal with here because I think Denver can go in there and beat Washington pretty convincingly right now. But anyway, moving on to number 3, the Chicago Bears are at number 3 again because they keep finding ways to win games. And they're sitting comfortably right now at the top of the NFC North right now with Green Bay not too far behind them. And the Lions sitting down there in the cellar with Minnesota. And they got their revenge for week 1. Chicago has gotten better ever since week 3. They have played very well over the last couple of weeks. They have found ways to win games. And this is the type of team that if they can hold this together, they could be a team that nobody would want to play with in the NFC playoff picture. They definitely are. What am I trying to say here? The results. I don't know why I couldn't figure out the word to say. The results have been paying off nicely since Ben Johnson came here. It took a little bit to get going, but hey, you've won 7 of your last 9 games. You've won 7 of your last 10 games. You've won 7 of your last 8 games. You've won 7 out of 10. That's what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, they're pretty good. They're looking pretty good right now, and I think they've got an easy opponent this week, mostly because of the history between these two franchises when they meet in Chicago. But we'll touch on that in the predictions coming up. But number 2, not really much more to say about the Colts. They were on a bye week last week. They're sitting there comfortably at number 2 on the list, and they're getting ready for a big matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs. So here's the chance for them to really prove themselves because coming up is the really tough stretch of their schedule. But again, we'll touch on that as we go along here. But let's go to the number 1 team again, and once again, it's the Buffalo Bills who, excuse me, something got caught in my throat there, but the Buffalo Bills, who last week were at the bottom of the power rankings because of how unprepared they were against the lowly Miami Dolphins and are now watching New England just sitting there, coasting along. They needed a big win against Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay did not make it easy for them for much of that game. I mean, they kept it close all the way into the fourth quarter, but then late in the fourth quarter, the Bills got it going fast, and the injury bugs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers got to them at the worst possible time, and now Tampa Bay's got a lot of question marks right there and are in danger of losing their spot to, of all teams, Carolina. But the Buffalo Bills did what they needed to do. They came back nicely, and they've got a pretty good stretch going forward here. Some games that could keep them in the race with the New England Patriots. I think they still have a chance to win the AFC East overall. I think it's going to be very close between the Bills and the Patriots, but I think Buffalo will find a way to come back into this picture in general. And I think they will find a way to go into New England and beat the Bills and beat the Patriots in New England. Get revenge on that one, but that's still far along down the road here. They got an easy test this week with the Houston Texans on Thursday night, which we'll touch on that in just a little bit here as we get to my predictions overall. That's my power ranking. So let's just go straight to the predictions. And once again, another good week overall here. I'm getting better with this. This has actually turned out to be my second best overall week of the year so far. 11 of 15, 73.3%, which is actually second highest only to week 4, and just surpasses week 9 here. So I am getting better here, and that's hopefully a sign that I can find a way to turn this all around here in general. I'm doing pretty good so far. But let's see what happens with the results of week number 12, and we start off with what should be a pretty good and interesting matchup overall here. We got the Buffalo Bills going to Houston to take on the Texans. Texans found themselves in a barn burner with the Tennessee Titans of all teams. I mean, Tennessee did their best that they could to come back in there, but then it all came down to a game-winning field goal from Dave, and then with the help of Davis Mills is getting that drive going. And lo and behold, the Texans are sitting comfortably now at 5-5 at 500. They have a chance to still stick around in here. I think it's going to be a tall task overall with Davis Mills in general. Even though C.J. Stroud did start practicing again this week, they did say, however, that he will be out for Thursday, so it will be Davis Mills once again. Which, to be fair, like a couple of other teams we'll talk about here as we go along, that could probably work out in their favor because Davis Mills has been running that offense much better than C.J. Stroud did this season. I don't want to say that C.J. Stroud is the problem, but yeah, right now it's best to stick with the hot hand here. But even then, I think it's going to, even if C.J. Stroud plays, I think it's going to be a tough task against the Buffalo Bills, who are coming off that big win against Tampa Bay. I think they really do. I think there is really the potential there for Buffalo to really continue this pace here and get right back in it with the Patriots. That not too far, but with the Patriots, I mean, not too far behind from them. So, plus, this is a revenge game for them because the year before, of course, the Houston Texans beat the Buffalo Bills, mostly because of questionable calls by Sean McDermott at the end of the fourth quarter, and it led to a Texans field goal win at the end of it. But I think the Buffalo Bills this time around will be the victors in this one here. I think they're just a better team overall. I think they're coming off that Tampa Bay win on a high note, and I think they'll take that into Houston and come back into this picture here for the AFC East title. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Buffalo Bills the win at 8-3 and the Texans to drop to 5-6. And then the Chicago Bears host AIDS, I guess, a.k.a. the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you don't know what I'm talking about, last week I called the Steelers AIDS because of their abysmal performance against the Chargers on Sunday night. But lo and behold, the Pittsburgh Steelers got their revenge against the Cincinnati Bengals in the Icy Hot Bowl 2. No thanks to Aaron Rodgers because he got injured halfway through the first half, and it's halfway through the game, I should say. It was in the first half. He played for all the first half, and then the second half it was Mason Rudolph overall. And again, kind of like with Davis Mills and the Texans, Mason Rudolph did a better job of handling the offense better than Aaron Rodgers did in that game against Cincinnati. I mean, it was a close game for much of that game up until that Kyle Duggar interception that really kind of turned the game around for the Pittsburgh Steelers and led them to the eventual win of 34-12. I mean, they were not scoring a whole lot of points at that point before Mason Rudolph got in there, and really that Kyle Duggar interception was really the thing that turned the tide around for the Steelers in that game. So the Steelers keep themselves ahead of the Ravens for now. We'll see if that changes anytime soon, but more than likely it will, because I still don't feel comfortable about the Steelers in general here. But I will say that Mason Rudolph could be the way to go in the future, but then you have this game here against the Chicago Bears. I talked about the Bears already, and here's the thing about what is, I say Mason Rudolph is the better option here, but here's the situation here. Here's where it gets tricky for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are 1-12 against the Chicago Bears in Chicago. That one time just so happened to be 30 years ago. It was 1995. It was at a point when the Steelers' season looked like it was in pretty much dire consequence. It was in dire need of a reboot. It was pretty much game over for them. And then Bill Cowher basically made the decision to tell everybody, hey, it's the start of a new season starting today, and we're going to treat it like that. So they went into Chicago that day, 30 years ago, took it to overtime, and found a way to win that game against the Chicago Bears. And it basically turned their season around because they eventually were the representatives of the AFC in Super Bowl 30, which, of course, they lost to the Cowboys, which Neil O'Donnell to Larry Brown. Unfortunately, Larry Brown didn't play for the Steelers. They played for the Cowboys, but that's a whole other thing altogether. But also, here's the other thing. Aaron Rodgers is 25-5 versus the Bears when he was with the Packers. So, yeah, there is a lot of reasoning to believe that even with Aaron Rodgers and that fractured hand of his, there is a reasonable argument to say that he should play in this game. Now, the good news is that he did not need surgery. So that was the big thing everyone was really worried about. Is he going to need surgery? How long could he possibly be out? So he's going to try to play this week. And honestly, if it was any other situation here, I would say Mason Rudolph should start. But considering Aaron Rodgers has the better record over the Chicago Bears overall, I think you really don't have any other choice but to see if Aaron Rodgers can play in this game. I think it's going to, but regardless of that, I think Aaron Rodgers gives you a better chance of winning, even if he has to keep handing the football off and all that. I don't think he would have a big game throwing the ball, because if I remember right, I can't remember, was it on it? Did he fracture his hand on his throwing arm, or was it his non-throwing arm? It's on his left side. Okay, he does throw with his right hand, so I guess there really wouldn't be that big of a problem overall with throwing the football. But yeah, you can also make the argument. There's a lot of arguments you can make for this whole thing. I think Aaron Rodgers does give you a better chance if you're the Steelers to win this game, but at the same time, though, the Chicago Bears, for some reason, just have the Steelers' number when it comes to going to Chicago. They've lost to Jay Cutler there. I mean, for God's sakes, they lost to Mike fucking Glennon, not once, but twice, when he was with Tampa Bay before, and then they had to beat him, and then they lost to them in Chicago, 8 years ago, which was the last time they were there. So really, I don't know. I don't know how this one's going to turn out in general here. I could see the Steelers possibly getting a win here, but at the same time, history says otherwise here. And we saw with the Bears on Sunday against Minnesota. They looked like they were out. They were dead and done for. Minnesota scored within a minute left in the game, and you thought it was pretty much game over. But then Caleb Williams gets the ball into field goal range, and they kick the game-winning field goal. So even if the Steelers do have the lead when it's all said and done in the fourth quarter, don't count out the Chicago Bears to come in and pull off a game-winning field goal or touchdown attempt. They've done it the last couple times now, and I wouldn't be shocked if all of that trend continues here. It's a very tough call on this one here. Of the games that the Steelers have left, this is probably one of those ones where they could have the easiest win possible, but I mean, think about it, because you got Buffalo next week. You have to go to Baltimore. You have the Dolphins on Monday night, which, knowing the Dolphins now, that might not be as easy as you think it is. You got to go to Detroit, then you got to go to Cleveland, and then you got to host Baltimore again in the regular season finale. And that game right there pretty much is going to probably be one of those games that turns out to be the Week 18 finale on Sunday Night Football, which, if that's the case, I'm definitely not looking forward to that if I'm doing the Sunday Night NFL rewatch, because, yeah, I said I was going to do the Week 18 finale, and if that happens, that's not going to be a good way to start the year off. But in terms of this game here, it could go one of two ways, but I'm going to go with the hot hand of the Chicago Bears to win this one here. I think Aaron Rodgers gives you the best chance to win this game if you're the Steelers, but even then, the record, I think, still holds for the Steelers when they go to Chicago. It's just not a good feeling at all. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Chicago Bears to win this one. I'm not as I think it's going to be a close game between these two, but I think Chicago does come out in the end in this one. Give me the Chicago Bears to go to 8-3, and the Steelers drop to 6-5. So following that, you have got the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the New England Patriots, which the last time this happened, a year ago, it was Gerard Mayo's first game as the head coach of the New England Patriots, taking over the reins of Bill Belichick. They won that game in Cincinnati, and everybody thought, oh shit, Gerard Mayo's the next great coach like Bill Belichick. And then he got fired at the end of the year in exchange for Mike Vrabel, who is looking like the real successor to Bill Belichick of how well he's doing with New England. And, I mean, yeah, they beat the Jets, which, for the Patriots, that's like literally nothing. That's like the equivalent of throwing a paper in the wastebasket. It's just like be the easiest thing possible to do. But they're going to take on the Bengals, who lost to the Steelers, of course. But not only that, Jamar Chase had to go ahead and be a fucking idiot and spit on Jalen Ramsey to provoke a fight and get him eliminated from the game. Is ejected from the game, which did happen. But then it turned out Jalen Ramsey was telling the truth about Jalen Ramsey, good lord, Jamar Chase spitting on him, as the evidence clearly showed he spit on him, and Jamar Chase was just like, well, I didn't do it. In fact, I'm so convinced I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and appeal the suspension. Clearly, they have to believe me. Yeah, spoiler alert, they didn't believe him. He's still suspended for this game. And yeah, it's basically the Jalen Carter situation here, and it was the right thing to do. The Bengals season is essentially cooked overall. The offense has looked pretty good, but the defense has been absolutely terrible. And this week against the Steelers, that offense just did not look good whatsoever. And even with Joe Flacco under center, the team looks pretty much dead in the water here, and their season pretty much is cooked at this point. At this point, there's really no reason to bring Joe Burrow back in here. I mean, really, what can you possibly do at this point What could he possibly do at this point with the Cincinnati Bengals like this year? It's not like last year where they had that one on that streak at the end of the season. I mean, the Bengals are not that good right now, and they're welcoming back in the New England Patriots, who are one of the hottest teams right now in the NFL. And yeah, I don't think it's even going to be close with this one here. I think New England's got to take this one easily. I think they'll continue to still ride on the hot hand of Ramondre Stevenson, Travion Henderson. Stephon Diggs will probably get Drake May, and Stephon Diggs will probably do a lot in this game here. I really don't think there's not much the Bengals can do, especially without Jamar Chase in the picture. I mean, without Jamar Chase in the picture, it's really taking a big part of that Bengals offense overall out of the picture, and that's the one thing that's been holding this team together. But it's not been getting them wins overall. So, yeah, I think New England will easily win this one. I think they will be the first team to go to 10 wins this season. And for the moment, they'll surpass the Denver Broncos as the top team in the AFC. So, for a little bit here. And the schedule overall really is easy for them for the bye week. I mean, after this, they play the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. And we know the Giants are not very good. So, then after that, you got the Buffalo Bills at the Ravens, the Jets, and the Dolphins, which their schedule overall, this is a team that really could finish at the very least I could see them getting to 12 wins overall, 12-5 for the year. I think Buffalo and Baltimore will give them a hard time, but Cincinnati, the Giants, the Jets, the Dolphins, I think there's definitely a scenario where they can get to 12 wins overall. They can get to 12-5. I think that's going to be their record when the season is over. As you can tell, I'm going to go with New England to win this one, to go to 10-2, and the Bengals to drop to 3-8. I just think the Bengals right now, their season is pretty much cooked at this point. There's really no need to bring Joe Burrow back into the lineup at this point. Just put him on the shelf for next season. If you're and get rid of Zach Taylor, man, because this is getting ridiculous for his own good, and it's just like there's no reason why he should still have a job at this point. At least that's my personal opinion behind it. And next up, you have got the Detroit Lions hosting the New York Giants. The Giants, Brian Daboll got fired last week. Mike Kafka came in. And I'll say this. The Giants did look a little bit better this week with Jameis Winston under center for at least a good chunk of that game. But then Green Bay came back in that game. And, Green Bay's season is back on track. Jameis Winston, I mean, I just don't get the Jameis Winston love. Like, why are we continually trying to praise Jameis Winston as like the second coming of Jesus? I'll never still get over the fact that a year ago they were treating him like the Messiah of the Cleveland Browns for coming in there, and it's just like I'll never forget it. I just saw the image on my old photos that I took on Twitter of him of Amazon calling him the national treasure. Like, national treasure my ass. He beat the Steelers in the snow on one game on Thursday Night Football, which basically, whenever Cleveland comes to host a Thursday Night Football game, they basically turn the Cleveland Browns of today like the Cleveland Browns in the 1980s, when they're really not. And he did not do jack shit with the Browns since then. I felt like, how some people say that some of these games seem like they're rigged? Anytime Cleveland plays on Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football, it literally does feel like there's nothing more than just... It feels like there's a lot of rigging going on. Like, they feel like the Cleveland Browns are really that special when they're not. They're just not right now. And I could go on the Cleveland Browns right now, but I'll save that for later on here when they play, because I actually am going to say something nice about them this week, because I think they do have a favorable matchup here. But regardless, They're going to be taking on the Lions, who, like I said, are in desperation mode to get back on track here. They are now sitting in third in their respective division right now, behind the Bears and the Packers. And the good news is for them that they're going to be at Ford Field for 4 of the next 7 weeks they have left in the season. After this, they got a Thursday Night Football matchup with them against Green Bay, which they're looking to get. They should look to get revenge on what happened 2 years ago when they hosted them on Thanksgiving. And then the Cowboys come to town, which should be a game that they should easily beat them in. And then they got the Steelers coming before Christmas, which I think is going to be an easy win for them. So they have the Lions have a chance to get back on track here. I think they should be able to get back on track in this point here. Judging by, let's see what we got here. I think they can beat the Giants. I think they will beat the Packers. I think they beat the Cowboys. So that would put them at 9-4 at that point. I think it's going to be a tough one against the Los Angeles Rams. I have that right now as a loss. But I think they respawn nicely against Pittsburgh and then against Minnesota. So they could still be at 11-5. And that's another one of those games that, because they'll play Chicago at the end of the season in Chicago, that could potentially be for the NFC North Division title if things work out the way that I think it will. And I think Detroit should win this game here. No question about it. I just think they're the better team right now than the New York Giants are. No question about that one. So I do think the Lions win this one to go to 7-4. Giants drop to 2-10. And Giants, I'm just thinking that they're just waiting for the season to be over at this point because it's not going to get any better for you anytime soon, unfortunately. Speaking of the Vikings, they face the Green Bay Packers this time in, I believe it's Lambeau Field? Yeah, Lambeau Field. Green Bay, like I said, did a good job of getting back on track, beating the New York Giants in that game last week. They had to come back and do it, and there was a lot of obstacles. No Josh Jacobs for much of the game. Jordan Love went out for a little bit, but came back in. And the Packers overall looked pretty good for the most part. And they're going to be facing the Minnesota Vikings, who, as I said before, I really think were a very overrated team last year in general. I do not think they were a great team last year, even though they had all those wins. And now with J.J. McCarthy under center, they're trying to push this as, oh, this is the future right now. We're going to do this right now. And J.J. McCarthy, keep in mind, he was out for all of last season, so this is his first real exposure here, and he really has not gotten a whole lot of time to really get going here for the Vikings. And, everyone wants to talk about how, oh, well, he did so good against Chicago and Detroit the first time around. It's just like, okay, those are divisional games. Those are the ones you expect to win. But unfortunately, they haven't done a whole lot since then. And, there's a lot of question marks about the Minnesota Vikings overall. And the Green Bay Packers, I think, are still trying to prove to everybody that they're still a force to be reckoned with in this division. And yeah, it's going to be a tough road to the end for the Packers in general here. And for the schedule for the Minnesota Vikings does not get any easier from here. I mean, they go to Seattle next week, which will be very tough for them. Washington, I think they could possibly win that one. At Dallas, that's going to be a tough one. At New York, that one shouldn't be so hard. Then they host Detroit and Green Bay once again, and those are two games in particular that they're probably going to get manhandled, and especially the Detroit one, because they want to get revenge for what happened to Minnesota in that one. So yeah, I don't think Minnesota is really going to go places here, and I think Green Bay knows that they do not have too many. They really don't want to lose any more free range to have a chance in this division here that they have left here. I mean, it's going to be tough for them to stick around here, and we're going to see what those two Chicago games in between December 7th and the 20th are really going to mean for this team. So I am going to go ahead and pick the Green Bay Packers to win this one. I think they're the better team in this matchup here. I have them going to 7-3-1, and I have the Vikings dropping to 4-7. So next up after that, we have the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Tennessee Titans. The Seahawks have been pretty good for most of the season, but they faced their first real roadblock this week against the Los Angeles Rams. Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts all day long, getting picked out 4 times. And, the Rams were the better team in that game. And they really are the best team right now in that division. I think Seattle's had the benefit of a really easy schedule for them for the most part. They lost to San Francisco in the opener. They lost to Tampa Bay when they had all their forces there, and they lost to the Rams. Their wins were against the Steelers, the Saints, the Cardinals, the Jaguars, the Texans, Commanders, and the Cardinals. And the Steelers and Jaguars right now are the only 2 teams in that stretch that are in the playoff picture right now. Houston is right there at the forefront, at the back of that, but you get the idea. The Seahawks can be a good football team overall, but they really need a big win in general to really get them to push that, to convince everybody that they are ready to be a force to be reckoned with here. And I just don't think it's there just yet. I really it's hard to trust this team right now, but but this week should be another easy win for them because they are going up against the Tennessee Titans, who, as I said before, I mean, Tennessee looked a lot better this week against Houston, but in the end, it just wasn't enough. And not only is Calvin Ridley out for the season, but the Tennessee Titans just look like they're just ready for the season to be over with so they can start going ahead and prepare for the draft, which at this point, they might end up getting the number 1 pick overall, which means that somebody could move up and essentially go ahead and trade up for them. I mean, the Rams right now, they are in the best position possible. I mean, they got that first-round pick from Atlanta, and Atlanta's sitting right now at 9th if the season was ending in the draft. So they have a chance to move up and get the number 1 spot to potentially draft a quarterback of the future if they really want to. But Tennessee, I mean, I think the season is pretty much done with here for them. I mean, there's really not much more to say about their season in general, except they really don't look like they have a lot to work with here. They've had bad coaching for most of the season, and it just doesn't feel like their hearts are in it right now, unfortunately. So this should be an easy win for the Seattle Seahawks. I think they will do a good job of beating Tennessee up in this one here. I have the Seahawks going to 8-3, and then I have the Titans dropping to 1-10, and they should be getting close to possibly being eliminated from the postseason for the Tennessee Titans, which means I can't wait to show off my new set of elimination videos here. I think I'm going to go with I'm going with a Naked Gun for this stretch overall. I haven't really decided yet, but Naked Gun is currently the front runner for the videos I might do this year. So stay tuned for that. Can't wait to do that. Following that, oh boy, this could be very, very telling of the futures of both of these teams coming up here. We've got the Indianapolis Colts at Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. The Chiefs, coming off their bye week last week, losing to Buffalo, and then they go ahead and lose to Denver. In a close game overall, but Denver proved their worth and proved that they are force to be reckoned with right now. Going in there and mopping the floor with the Kansas City Chiefs in this one year. They will meet again on Christmas Day in Kansas City, and we'll see if Denver can sweep the series or will Kansas City return the favor. But Kansas City right now sitting at 5-5 and in danger of not only losing out the AFC West title not only losing out the number 1 seed, but possibly not even making the playoffs altogether. And that hasn't happened for the Kansas City Chiefs in over 11 years. I think 2014 was the last time they missed the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. But that's the situation that the Kansas City Chiefs are in right now. They just haven't looked like the same team that they have over the last couple of years. And this isn't like a situation where, you look at this and go like, oh, well, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. They'll find their way back in there. Right now, I'm not too sure because every team has every team has beaten them in their division except for the Raiders, which really the Raiders, it's not really much for shocker. I mean, I could beat the Raiders, and I don't even need a team. I just need to show up, and I just need to show up, and I could beat the crap out of them easily. I'd probably get hit a lot by Max Crosby, but hey, I at least proved the point. But yeah, so Kansas City is in dire desperation mode right now. They're going to be taking on the Indianapolis Colts, who enjoyed a nice bye week after their trip to Berlin, coming back in overtime to win that game against the Falcons, with Jonathan Taylor having a banner day overall. I think he had a record day for them. I think it was 244 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think that might be his best overall day of his career. And, he passed Edgerrin James for the most rushing touchdowns in his career. So the Colts right now have looked pretty good. They went into the bye week 8-2. They really didn't. There's a couple of games most of their games were pretty easy. I think their toughest game that they won was Denver, and mostly they won that game solely because of a penalty by the Broncos at the end of that game. I mean, but when they had to face a team like the Rams or the Steelers, they haven't been able to win those games. This is the true test for them right now. I mean, their schedule right now going forward here: Kansas City, they go see Houston twice, they see Jacksonville twice, at Seattle and San Francisco. That is a tough stretch of games, especially when you consider all these teams are capable of still making the playoffs, especially the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are still in there. The Kansas City Chiefs, you can never count them out until it's really they can really push. You can really push them out. Seattle and San Francisco, and they got to go to Seattle in prime time is at Lumen Field, which is always a death trap for an away team in there. You got to be really good to go into Seattle and win those games. And yeah, this is going to be a tough stretch for them overall here. This stretch right here will prove if they are indeed worthy of being considered one of the best teams in football. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this. They have to go into Kansas City and prove to them and prove that they're better than the Chiefs, which is going to be a tough task overall here. Kansas City is in a dire situation here. The Colts are 8-2. They're in a situation now where they can stand to possibly lose a couple of games, and so focus specifically on those 4 divisional games with the Texans and Jaguars here. I mean, it should be a close game overall, but I think it's going to be the home team in the Kansas City Chiefs that wins this one, gets back to 500. It should be a close game overall, but I am going to go with the Chiefs to win this one, to go to 6-5, and the Colts to drop to 8-3. I don't think the Colts are looking at this as a must-win game overall. I think they're going to put their focus on the season games they got to play against the Texans and Jaguars, and then the Seattle Seahawks and the 49ers later on. Those are the games I think they're going to put more effort into instead of the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. It just feels like it's going to be that type of a game. But we will find out after this game if the Colts are for real or if the Chiefs are still alive, which at this point, it wouldn't be hard to be surprised if that's the case here. But Kansas City is going to need a lot of help in these next couple of weeks to still stick around in this race for the playoffs again. But I think it's going to be a tough one this time around, but hey, if anybody can do it, it's the Chiefs. So following that, we have got the New York Jets going into Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Ravens are going to win this one. I mean, really, why even sugarcoat it right now? The Ravens should mop the floor with the New York Jets in this one. It should not even be close in this one here. And as I said before, never picking the New York Jets ever again. Even though the Jets have looked pretty good the last couple of weeks, winning 2 of their last 3 games, they're still not very good, and they got their asses handed to them by the Patriots. They just replaced Justin Fields with Tyrod Taylor as the starting quarterback. Yeah, I don't think the Jets are going to have an opportunity to win this one against the Ravens. The Ravens right now, they're playing with house money. They beat the Cleveland Browns in a close one last time around, which really they won that game because they switched out Dylan Gabriel for Shedeur Sanders, and they were really unprepared for that, the Cleveland Browns were. We'll get to them in just a little bit, but Ravens took full advantage of that, and really, there's no reason to believe that the Ravens aren't going to win this game here. I would be shocked if the Jets found a way to win this one over the Ravens. I mean, this would be even more shocking than the Bengals loss, honestly. But if I had a lock of the week, this would probably be it. Give me the Ravens to win this one to go to 6-5. Jets go to 2-9, and the Ravens should usurp the Pittsburgh Steelers as the AFC North leader in this one, because the Steelers aren't even going to bother to wait till December to disappoint their fans. They're going to start doing it right now. So, speaking of the Browns, as we open up the late afternoon window here, we've got the Browns going to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders in the Toilet Bowl, which, yeah, the Raiders and the Browns are fucking terrible right now. Both teams are. The Raiders, why were the Raiders the focus of that Monday Night Football game? Really, like, what was the NFL thinking when they said, Monday Night Football should be the marquee matchup week for big football games? You know who spells marquee games? The Raiders. Even though the Raiders have not looked good at any point in the last couple of years, we're still going to put them in there because, Raider Nation is still alive and well, and no, it's not. The Raiders are fucking terrible this year. And once again, the Raiders just showed no life against the Dallas Cowboys last night. I mean, they had an opportunity to really do something. They were up 6-3, and then Dallas got good. That George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb were in the game. For some reason, they decided to hold them off for the first drive for reasons that are beyond me. And then once they got back in there, it was pretty much game over for the Raiders. They had no chance whatsoever. Like, at this point, there's nothing that the Raiders can do right now that would convince me that they're worthy in their current position right now. They should just go ahead and just tank for the rest of the season. Just go ahead and try to get that first-round draft pick. That quarterback in the first round is a very high draft pick overall, because there's nothing that the Raiders can do that can convince me they're that good. They're going to be taking on the Cleveland Browns, which was a lot of drama last Sunday with Shedeur Sanders coming in for the first time in his NFL debut, and everyone just like with other Browns quarterbacks, they expect Shedeur Sanders to go in there and all of a sudden just become Superman. When no, you can't just throw somebody like Shedeur Sanders into the Lions' den against a divisional opponent and expect him to go in there and be that great player he was in Colorado. And sure enough, guess what happened? He failed miserably in that game. And really, it's not really his fault that happened. They threw him in there, basically in the Lions' den, because once that happened, there was no hope for the Browns winning that game. The Ravens were going to win that game regardless. I'm not going to blame Shedeur Sanders for what happened in that game here. I think he was just put in a bad situation. I think the Cleveland Browns are handling the situation very, very badly. And, this is another situation where it's going to be just like the other times they put a new quarterback in there. They're not going to treat him well, and and he's probably going to be a bust in Cleveland and probably be better off elsewhere. That's just the problem with the Cleveland Browns. They do this every single time with a new quarterback. They bring in these new guys, and they expect them to just go in there and be like, okay, be that great person we expect you to be. They did that to Tim Couch. They did that to Brady Quinn. They did that to Johnny Manziel. They did it to Baker Mayfield, and it worked, but then they got rid of him for Deshaun Watson. And now look at what Baker Mayfield is doing right now. He's turned around that Tampa Bay team. That could have been yours, Cleveland. That could have been yours, and yet you decided to go with this situation here. And it's just. But here's the thing in this game here: of the two teams playing in this one here, the Cleveland Browns are the sanest team compared to the Raiders in general. They have a good defense. Myles Garrett right now is the only thing that is saving this team is giving this team relevancy with the season that he's having in general here. It's been a really good season. He had 4 sacks on Lamar Jackson. He's going to have a field day with Geno Smith on Sunday. And I think the Browns actually have a really good chance of winning this game in general here, mostly because of the defense in general. The Raiders, I think, have nothing of value to them right now, and it's amazing that they're still sticking around with this whole thing in general and just expecting things to be to everyone say kumbaya and all that. It's just not happening with this Raiders team. They are not a good football team. The Browns at least have some life to them, regardless of who starts in this game, whether it's Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. I think the Browns actually go in this game and win it. I think they have a better chance of winning in this game here. And I think I don't know what the overall predictions overall here is going to be, but what's the actual line right now? I'm curious. So let me just give you 1 second here. The Raiders are a 3.5-point favorite right now. Why? Just why? What did they do? What have they done this season that people still think the Raiders are better than the teams that they're playing? Because they're not. I think the Cleveland Browns have a better chance of winning this game than people let on here. I think they're the more stable team. I think they have the better chances of going down to Las Vegas and getting the win here. I'm going to go with the Browns to win this one. I think I might be one of the few that predicts them to do this, but I think the Browns have a stable defense that could stop Geno Smith in general here. I think the Browns overall will be in a much better position to win this game over the Raiders will. I'm going to go with the Browns to win this one, to go to 3-8, and the Raiders to drop to 2-9. I think they're in a good situation to do that. I'm shocked that people think the Raiders are still going to win these games here. They've been terrible all year long, and that's not going to change anytime soon with them. Sorry, it just isn't. Next up, you've got the Jacksonville Jaguars going out to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Arizona, another one of those teams that are just wishing the season was over with, because, my God, the season started off with so much promise, being 2-0, and they have won only 1 game since then, and it hasn't even been close. They've had times when they had the lead and they've blown that, and then the last 2 weeks they got blown out by two divisional rivals, the 2 better divisional rivals, and it wasn't even close in either one of those games. They're going to be taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are coming off of a hot streak right now. They are now sitting at 6-4. They got the big win against the Chargers, 35-6. They have overlooked that collapse they had against the Texans a couple weeks ago, and they are in a better position right now to win this game than the Cardinals are. The Cardinals just have nothing left in them right now. Their best player right now is Trey McBride. Marvin Harrison Jr. has been out is going to be still out for a couple weeks. Kyler Murray is still out. I don't know what the Cardinals are doing right now. They just have nothing in the tank right now. The Jaguars should win this one with no question about it. If they lose this game, then there is something wrong with the Jacksonville Jaguars that needs to be addressed right away. It's been a rocky it's been a mostly good season for them with a couple of little low patches here and there, but it seems like they're getting back on track at the right time. I think this is a game they should easily win. They've got a pretty good schedule overall here. They go to Tennessee next, which should be an easy win. They then host Indianapolis, which they should beat the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. Then they got the Jets. The Broncos, I think, will be their toughest game left in the season, and then going to Indianapolis, I think, will be tough. I think they can still find a way to compete with the Colts for the division title. There's still a possibility there. Looking at where they're at right now, let's see. The Arizona, I think that's a win. At Tennessee should be a win. At Indianapolis should be a win. So that's, yeah. By the time they get the Denver game, they should be sitting at 10-4 right now. I think they can win these next 4 games, and then those 2 games. I think they can finish somewhere between 10. I think they can finish 10-7 and still be in the playoff hunt. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Arizona Cardinals. What am I thinking? I'm gonna go with the Jacksonville Jaguars to win this game here. I think they should win this game here. Give me the Jaguars to go to 7-4. Arizona should drop to 3-8, and Arizona is just one of those teams that is just waiting for the season to be over so they can think about their past, think about their troubles, and possibly start rebuilding the team from the start up, from the waist up all over again. I am not being able to talk right today. I don't know what it is. I sound like a robot right now. I sound like Robert F. Kennedy right now. No, not even Robert F. Kennedy. I sound like a who's the coach from the Houston Oilers? Bill Petovich, I think it is, or something like that. Hold on one second. Bill Peterson. I'm sorry. I always think of this whenever I talk, and for some reason every time I try to talk, I feel like this is how it sounds like to me.
I just want you to give me 110% for till 5 o'clock, and then let's go home. We're going out there this first half, and we're going to explode like a bomb. Then the second, we're just going to get higher. Third quarter, we're going to get higher. And the fourth quarter, we're just going to catch on fire, and that's our game plan. And let's just go out and do it that way. If we are in this kind of a situation, let's go third down punt.
That's how I sound like when I talk. That's how I sound like Bill Peterson. Like, I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about here. Like, there's a great moment from one of these NFL Top 10 specials where he's just like, if you think I have an idea of what I'm about to do here, you got another fat thing coming, like something like that. But bottom line here, Jacksonville should win this one to go to 7-4. Cardinals will drop to 3-8. Okay. I think we've got the point here. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next game here. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles is going to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Of course, this is the game that started the 2025 season off with the Eagles winning that game, even though the Cowboys did give it a fight at the end. And of course, remember, that's the game that Jalen Carter got taken out of early on. But hey, the Cowboys still found a way to win that game overall, and eventually they won that game 24-20. The Cowboys, I'll give it this: they did their job. They beat the Raiders, which is what they should have done on Monday night, and did it pretty convincingly. And the Raiders just had no answers against them. But I don't even think it was the Cowboys really that did a whole lot. I mean, the Raiders just didn't do anything at all. And even when they tried to come back in that game, but it was too little, too late at that point, because the Raiders had pretty much did everything they needed to do. The Cowboys did everything they needed to do to win that game. So they're going to be taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who won on Sunday night last week, but their offense overall is still very, very troubling. I mean, since coming back from the bye week, they've scored only 26 points over 16 points compared to. These were the scores they had in weeks 1 through 8. 24, 20, 33, 31, 17, 17, 28, 38. They lost those 2 games in October to Denver and New York. Those are their only 2 losses. And right now, 10-7 against the Packers and then 16-9 against the Detroit Lions. Again, I'll say this for what I said about the Denver Broncos last week against Kansas City. You can't win a game by scoring just 10 points. Especially with a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who have one of the best offenses in the league right now, even though their defense overall has not been great. But yeah, their offense overall is a lot better. Dak Prescott's having an MVP caliber season. George Pickens has been a saving stone for the team, which I still am looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers and going like, which sports media person in Pittsburgh told you to get rid of George Pickens? Tell me. Was it Andrew Filipponi? Was it Colin Dunlap? Are they still trying to convince you that Brandon Ayuk is still coming to the Steelers? Because I still feel like feel like Brandon Ayuk will be a Steeler at some point. That's how I feel like. That's what I feel like when I see this whole situation with the George Pickens thing. Because look at how well he's doing in Dallas. He's not being the diva that everyone thought he was going to be. He's on a team right now that has not been through a Super Bowl in 30 years, and yet it feels like he has no worries whatsoever because he's balling right now. And it makes me bitter. It makes me bitter to see George Pickens having success with his team. So they're going to be taking on the Eagles, which, yeah, for the Eagles, this is about as important of a win as it is for the Cowboys, especially considering how the last 2 games they have struggled to score a lot of points. That offense needs to come and show up this week. They have to show up against the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys, I think, are going to the Cowboys will mop the floor with them. I think the Cowboys I think the Eagles should win this game because they are the better team defensively, but if the Cowboys start scoring a lot of points on offense, this game could get pretty ugly pretty fast. But I am going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles to sweep the series. I still think they have a better chance of winning this. I think they have the best chance of winning their division easily and becoming the first team in 22 years to win the same division in the NFC East right now. I mean, that's just the situation they're in because everybody else has been so terrible. Cowboys' defense was a lot better on Monday against the Raiders, but it was against the Raiders. That's really not much of a tall task to do, so I'm going to go in and give the Eagles the win in this one to go to 9-2 and the Cowboys to drop to 4-6-1. But I could see the Cowboys pulling off the win here, especially if the offense is able to find a way to get around this defense in general. So following that, we have got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Atlanta Falcons. And the Saints were on their bye week last week. They coming out and they had a big win against the Carolina Panthers. This will be their first time playing the Falcons this season. Falcons suffered a big loss this week to Carolina. Carolina swept the series, and on top of that, Michael Penix Jr. is out for the season. He is on injured reserve. If I remember correctly, he is on injured reserve right now. His season is pretty much over and done with. And maybe I'm misreading it because he was placed on injured reserve. I think I saw in Brandon Perna's That's Good Sports video that dropped today that he's saying in there that he's done for the season, which I have not heard that per se, but bottom line, the Falcons right now are just in desperation mode for anything. They're going to be without key players again this week. It's going to be Kirk Cousins at the forefront this week, and he's the only quarterback right now that is currently on the active roster. They have a couple of backups in Easton. They have at least one backup in Easton Stick, but other than that, though, it's the Kirk Cousins show from this point going forward. So hey, the Atlanta Falcons have at least a reason now to keep Kirk Cousins around because they desperately need him. But for the New Orleans Saints, Tyler Shough won his first start as a quarterback in the league, and I think this one here, I think they can use that momentum they had at the end of the last bye week against Carolina and use it this week against Atlanta. I think the Saints overall have a better chance of getting the win in this one here than the Falcons do. The Falcons season, I think, is pretty much just cooked at this point. Even with Kirk Cousins there, I don't think it's going to really do a whole lot to really show that they're still capable of doing anything this season. I think their season's pretty much cooked at this point. The Saints are too, but at least they have an excuse because they have a rookie head coach in Kellen Moore. I'm going to go ahead and give the Saints the win in this one. I think the Saints will win this one to go to 3-8, and the Falcons drop to 3-8. And then we've got a Sunday night football matchup between the Los Angeles Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Rams, as I mentioned before, beat the Seattle Seahawks pretty convincingly, picked off Sam Darnold 4 times, and got a big win against the Seahawks, who everyone thought was going to be the top team in that division. But the Rams right now are playing with house money right now. Matthew Stafford is having an MVP caliber season. Even though the score was closer than you would expect it to be for a game like that, the Rams have been playing very well this season. This is a team that, if they made the Super Bowl this year, this would be the antithesis of the 2021 year, the complete opposite of the 2021 year, which I'm still convinced that the Rams won that Super Bowl that year because they were gift wrapped at that run by the NFL because we were still in COVID times. I mean, that's how I felt about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers season in general. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won that Super Bowl in 2020 because of COVID, because they didn't want a lot of people going down to the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. They wanted they put those, like, it's a whole conspiracy theory thing I have with that in general here. But I digress. Like, if this Los Angeles Rams team made the Super Bowl, I think it's more than well earned. They're going to be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who started out pretty promisingly. They were 5-1 to start the year, and then they just dropped all the way down to the situation they're in. They've lost 4 of their last 3. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games. They mopped the floor with the New Orleans Saints, and then got their asses handed to them by New England and Buffalo. And it's mostly been because of the injuries. The injuries are starting to pile up big time for them. They have not been able to get these wins here. Baker Mayfield's trying to do everything in his power to keep this team afloat, but in the end, it just doesn't matter right now because there's a lot of key pieces missing on this offensive front and the defensive front. They're just as banged up as the San Francisco 49ers are right now. But I mean, it's a tough thing right now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they can be really good, and they're still right now at the front of the NFC South right now. But Carolina is not too far behind, and could usurp them at some point if things work out like it could be this week, like I have a plan. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game overall for the Buccaneers to handle here. I think the Rams right now are playing with house money. They're playing so good right now. Their quarterback is at the top of his game right now. It's hard to believe that this past week was the first time in his career that he actually was above 500 in total games. Like, I think it was 116, 115, and 1. It's just like really, were those years in Detroit really that bad to not have a winning record at all at that point? It's up until now. I mean, that's shocking, man. That's shocking to think about, But regardless, I am going to give the home team the win in this one here. I think the Rams should go into this one and easily win it against Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay just has too many injuries right now to hold up against this Rams team. So give me the Rams to go to 9-2 and the Buccaneers to drop to 6-5. And then following that, we have our Monday Night Football matchup between the Carolina Panthers and the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners mopped the floor with the Cardinals. It wasn't even close. Brock Purdy came back in there. Had a good game overall, but it was against the Arizona Cardinals. I think anybody could really do that. But then you have the Carolina Panthers, who have been one of those teams that has been real surprises overall. They're finally getting what they were expecting to see from Bryce Young this season. I think Bryce Young is playing his best. Bryce Young played his best game of the season of his career as a Carolina Panther. I mean, he threw for over 440 yards and led the team to a win in overtime against the Falcons, a season sweep for them. Carolina is playing very well right now, and I think that could be bad news for the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, the 49ers are playing good right now, but they have a lot of injuries, just like Tampa Bay does. And, sooner or later, those injuries are going to start to lead into a number of different problems for the 49ers to deal with here. I think it's going to be too much for them, and I think Carolina should take full advantage of that right now. I think they really are playing very well. Plus, as we've been seeing so far, playing on Monday Night Football has not been a good thing for the home team. I mean, this season alone, there's been more losses by the home team than the away team has lost this year. And you can see it throughout the course of the games we've had this season. Just think about it. I mean, Minnesota won the first game of the season. Tampa Bay and Los Angeles won in week 2. Detroit won against Baltimore in week 3. Los Angeles beat the Raiders in Vegas, and Tampa Bay beat Houston in week 2. Minnesota beat Chicago in Chicago, and then you had a stretch of some home teams winning. Then the Chicago Bears beat the Commanders on Monday Night Football in week 6. And then the Cardinals beat the Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Packers, and then this past week the Cowboys beat the Raiders. So if I'm the San Francisco 49ers right now, I'm trying to do everything I can to make sure that Carolina does not come in there and beat us in that game. But I just don't think it's going to be the case in this one here. I think Carolina is playing with house money right now. I think they're a very good football team right now. And I think they really are showing, I think they can do well against the 49ers in this one here, especially to get Rico Dowdle going like you've had the last month or so. I think Carolina can be a team that shocks everybody in this one. I'm gonna go with what's been going on this season on Monday Night Football. I'm gonna go with the away team to win this one here. I'm gonna go with the Carolina Panthers to shock the 49ers in this one here. I think the Carolina Panthers are playing better right now than the 49ers are. I think it'll be a close game, but I think Carolina could come out on top and win this one here. I'm going to go ahead and give the Carolina Panthers the win, go to 7-5, 49ers drop to 7-5. So there you go. To recap my picks for Week 12, I have the Buffalo Bills over the Texans, the Chicago Bears over the Steelers, the Patriots over the Bengals, the Lions over the Giants, the Packers over the Vikings, Seahawks over the Titans, the Chiefs over the Colts, Ravens over the Jets, the Browns over the Raiders, the Jaguars over the Cardinals, the Eagles over the Cowboys, the Saints over the Falcons, the Rams over the Buccaneers, and the Panthers over the 49ers. So I did pretty well last week. Let's see how I do this week. Hopefully it'll be better. But more than likely, it's probably going to be less. I'm probably going to get a bunch of these wrong, but we'll see what happens here. But like I said, thank you, as always. If you like this and want to see more videos like this, hit our like button, subscribe button, notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist and check out the last video I did with the NFL predictions overall. And with that said, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. So I'll see you next week, see what happens when we get to Week 13. Until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.
The following has been a presentation of the Reviewing Network Sports.